Hi, I'm Mika Frankel. Welcome to Cage Minds MMA Show. Visit the website, it's cageminds.com, and follow us on social media. On Facebook, it's Cage Minds Combat Sports News. On Instagram, it's at CageMinds_CSN, and on Twitter, it's the original at Cage Minds MMA. Over there on the Facebook page and going up on the Instagram, you got a lot of great photos from Rob Gutierrez from this past weekend's boxing in Las Cruces, and then Franklin Romero, a lot of great photos also up from him if you search the archives. Also support what we do by picking up some merchandise over at nmproshop.com. The season is changing. We're going from the fall to the winter here soon, so we will have the long sleeves, the hoodies, all that available with a new look to the website coming soon. That's over at nmproshop.com where you can get your merchandise. A lot to talk about this week. We start, as we always have, with the Contender Series. At least it feels like we always have. We've been doing it for about the last, 9 weeks? Yeah. 10th week and final week of this season coming up this week. Dana White still in a giving mood, and I mean this week there were some spectacular finishes that definitely deserved it. Gadiz Agmarichavin defeats Jancy Silva with a knee bar. 4 minutes 19 seconds into the first round, obviously getting a contract. Same thing for Manuel Torres, who gets a TKO in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Punches and elbows, devastating stuff. Kareem Silva and Javid Barast also earning contracts. So Dana White hands out 4 more this week. Contender Series was Tuesday. Wednesday, according to the Pro Fighters League, the PFL, it was the biggest night in MMA. $6 million on the line. I love to see fighters getting paid, so it was a huge night for me. The main event, as expected, Kayla Harrison defeats Taylor Gardado. Devastating fashion. Gardado put up a fight for as long as she could, but Harrison is dominant. It's a foregone conclusion that she is a big money free agent. The two-time PFL lightweight champion. My opinion, the best money, $1 million a year, it's going to be staying with the PFL. That would be my best idea. But Kayla Harrison is a contender that wants to go down in infamy. She wants to be remembered. She wants to go after greatness. Well, the PFL did just sign Julia Budd. That may keep Harrison content for one more season. And the season with a huge name on your resume, that would get Harrison possibly to 14, 15-0, maybe 16-0 at that point. Then you hit free agency again here in a year. But if the PFL wants to lock you down to a longer-term contract, then you have to think maybe Bellator and that opportunity to fight Cyborg, then come back for a PFL season. Heck, maybe you could do that. Maybe you could one-off, go fight Cyborg, come back for the next PFL season. Or you make the jump, you go to the UFC, and you attack the couple names there. You probably have to fight a Norma Dumont, a Holly Holm, a Felice Spencer, and then you got the opportunity to take on your teammate, Amanda Nunes, and go after that GOAT title. A big decision for Kayla Harrison, but an impressive finish. And once again, it leaves you with thoughts that possibly we could be looking at the next big thing in women's MMA. She's here currently. She's dominating. But the caliber of competition hasn't been at that elite level. If not now, when? Maybe in a year from now. It could be a good plan to make another $1 million. Add a Julia Budd, like I said. But the time is coming for big fights for Kayla Harrison. She's obviously proved that she's worthy. The co-main event, I thought the power of Ray Cooper would be too much for Magomed Kirimov in their rematch, and it was. The first round was Magomed on top. The second round was Cooper on top. Ground and pound, but not finishing off the opponent. Then in the third round, you could see Cooper fading. Magomed picking up his offense, picking apart Cooper from the outside. Cooper not moving against the cage. I felt there was a couple points where the ref could have jumped in or it was going to get nasty. And it did get nasty. But in the other direction. Cooper, a left hook, right hook. Down goes Magomed. One punch, lights out. Your two-time PFL welterweight champion. Now that's $2 million in the bank for the Hawaiian Ray Cooper. In shocking fashion. Looked dead to rights. Epic comeback. Lightweight action for the women. It was the special feature fight. Abigail Montez hands Clarissa Shields her first professional loss in any combat sports arena, but first professional loss in MMA. And I want to make it clear. This to prove, without a shadow of a doubt, if we haven't seen it already, boxing and MMA, they're two different sports. Clarissa Shields, well, it is more than admirable what she's doing, wanting to compete at a high level, defend her world titles in boxing, and still make this journey towards MMA stardom and MMA breakout stardom. It may be a little much. It's a lot to do. It's a lot on one person's plate. Abigail Montez, who comes out of a strong team, that Team Logo in Mexico, fully focused on MMA, wins the second and third rounds with her grappling. The fight ends with Montez in mount, punching downwards. Shields did have her moments early on in the fight, some big right hands. Does not look fully comfortable yet in the cage, and how could she, jumping in just her second professional fight? The pressure, the fast pace. This is why you should take some bumps in the road in MMA and you get to bounce back from, because it is such a crazy sport. It's admirable again what Shields is doing. We've seen that there's holes in her game now. Obviously the grappling was going to be attacked. It's nothing that she can't overcome. She's a world-class athlete, and I won't be surprised if her third fight is better than her second fight, if we see a whole new fighter. But I don't know if it's a commitment or what kind of adjustments need to be made to the training to maximize Shields' potential in MMA. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know if you have to decide if it's boxing or MMA. I don't know if we're at that point where she's has to be committed to one or the other because it'll be a detriment to both. Possibly it's been a detriment now to one. This is a growing process in a brand new sport, a huge challenge. But it proves again that these are just two different sports, and it's a huge victory for Abigail Montez, who has obviously earned her way into next season's tournament. A huge victory and a monumental upset, because you can't look past whether it's MMA, it's boxing, it's a street fight. Montez just beat a two-time Olympic gold medalist, a two-division world champion in combat sports. That is a huge accomplishment, and we'll talk about why, because we've seen when kickboxers come over, Gokhan Saki, Israel Adesanya. We'll talk about one coming up here a little bit later. We expect greatness because of the high level of competition, so you almost have to expect the same from Clarissa Shields. It's a growing process. I believe that I did hear that her next bout will be defending one of her world titles in the boxing ring. This year's heavyweight champion is Bruno Capalosa, defeating Auntie Jaleen, and I thought this fight had ended maybe 3, maybe 4 times. Refereeing is quite horrible. Capalosa lands the first 60 strikes of the fight. I swear there was a flash knockout where Jaleen goes out, went limp, split second, gets woken back up. I guess knocked out and knocked back in. Isn't knocked out. The brain probably still feels the effect, but who really cares? Let the fight keep going. Capalosa at one point lands 30 straight in the second round. Still another flash knockout. Doesn't happen. You see Jaleen get back on top. At this point, his ground and pound towards the second round actually knocks out and knocks Capalosa back in. So let me recount that to you. Capalosa lands 60 strikes. I would have called that a TKO, unanswered. Lands a flash knockout. Lands 30 strikes unanswered. Gets put on his back and actually gets knocked out. Jaleen ends the fight with his back on the fence. We get all the way to the decision. And on the 4th victory of the night, Capalosa picks one up on the scorecards and $1 million. And in one of the saddest sights I've ever seen, Capalosa is then made aware of his father's passing, that it had happened during the week, and the decision was made to keep it from Bruno in order to concentrate on the fight. You cannot imagine what that moment is like, to win $1 million and to find out a parent has passed away. Our condolences and best wishes to the Capalosa family. Congratulations, Bruno, on the biggest win of your career. Movlid Kayabulov is the featherweight champion for this year. We knew it was going to be a wrestling match. Who could get on top? And it was Movlid taking it out on Chris Wade. Wade had looked tremendous in this drop for the first time this season to 145 pounds, but Kayabulov's wrestling was just too much to overcome. Antonio Carlos Jr. takes out Martin Hamlet in the first round. A right hand to a double leg from Carlos Jr. for the takedown. Hamlet stands up, and it's Antonio Carlos Jr. on the back, rear naked choke as they hit the ground to get the submission victory. And then keeping his immaculate season going. I mean, a bit of luck, I felt, with the decision win in the semifinals over Clay Collard. But there was no doubt about Usman Theo on this night as he put it on Loki Razibabov for 4 rounds. 2 judges going 49-46. You get a 48-46. Manfio's forward pressure, his right hands, vicious body attacks, knees up the middle from the tie clinch, and when he was taken down, popped right back up. Thought that was going to be a huge difference maker in the fight. The upset happens. Usman Theo joins his best friend, who he actually had to beat, Natan Schultz, to get to this opportunity. I mean, it was a who's who list of lightweights that Manfio had to go through this season, definitely earning that $1 million. A couple hours later in Singapore, it was One Championship Next Gen Light Heavyweight Kickboxing Championship main event called off. Roman the champion sick. Iger Azapar stays on the card, beats the brakes off of Anderson Broderick Silva. His left leg attacks, forward standing in his orthodox position. That left leg, I mean, it's almost ambidextrous, hitting from so many different levels. In heavyweight action, Kirill Jenkrop stops Dustin Johnson, so Kirill will move forward. And in the atomweight Grand Prix, we now know who'll meet in the finals. Stamp Fairtex gets the decision victory, and Root Fugat does. So we're going to see the former Muay Thai world champion and kickboxing world champion against the standout wrestler for that One Championship atomweight Grand Prix. The next morning, UFC 267 from the Etihad Arena on Yas Island, UAE, Abu Dhabi. We have a new light heavyweight champion. It's Glover Teixeira. Wait, I think they were calling him Glover Teixeira. I'm not sure if it's Glover, if it's Glover. If the champ could reach out and specify that and clear up the situation, that would be great, because I've heard his name one way, I swear, for years. He was Glover, and then this week I was hearing, or Glover, and now I was hearing Glover. See, it's already getting me confused. We need some clarification if you can give it, champ, but it's glad to call the 42-year-old the champ. Second oldest in UFC history, right next to the American legend, Randy Couture. How did the Brazilian get it done? Well, first off, there was no resistance from the Polish champion of the takedown in the first round. A clear 10-8, hanging out in the guard, creating top pressure, grinding his head into Blachowicz. Teixeira made that first round nasty and took it easily. The second round, a much better round for Blachowicz. It looked like he was landing his combinations, his jabs, his hands were firing well, and it appeared to me that he had Teixeira hurt early. They start mixing it up, and in a big exchange, there is a simultaneous firing of left hands. Good old Carlos Condon, Dan Hardy. But instead of where, in that aspect, in that situation, Carlos has landed on Hardy's and just was a clean knockout, this was a wobbling with Teixeira cracking Blachowicz on the jaw. Blachowicz's hook had wrapped around the head, not being as impactful as more the inside of the forearm, landing. You had a wobble, Blachowicz backing up. Teixeira attacks the takedown, gets the single leg from side control. Looks like he was about to get a Kimura. Teixeira is able to advance to the mount, some ground and pound. Blachowicz gives up the back, and it looks like it's just a jaw crush. Maybe it's a rear naked choke, but to me it looked like a jaw crush and a quick tap from Blachowicz. Glover Teixeira, the Brazilian, is now the UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. It's a 6-fight win streak, and it's something 16 years in the making. Hardcore fans, those of us that have been around the sport for a long time, you can remember Chuck Liddell at a point talking about Teixeira being the next big thing, the next world champion, the guy that he thought had it all. Teixeira didn't enter the UFC until he had a 16-fight win streak and didn't get a title fight until that win streak was at 20 due to problems with a visa. This has been a long path, not to mention a path that many people didn't think would happen due to the loss to John Jones. Let's be honest. Teixeira was a foregone conclusion of out of the title picture, has started to lose some fights, and looked to be on his way out of the division. Worked hard, continued at the basics, has shown what hard, diligent work can do, and is now the champion. It's quite the story. What's next for the champion? Well, after some time of partying, we all know Yuri Prochazka will be the next title challenger. Co-main event, Peter Yan defeats Corey Sandhagen by unanimous decision to pick up that UFC interim bantamweight championship. It was a spectacular striking affair. I love the fight. First 2 rounds, back and forth, hard body shots. I thought that the volume of Corey Sandhagen was outdoing Peter Yan. But even I could tell you, scoring those first 2 rounds for Sandhagen, there were a lot of tells to me that this pressure, the pace, the volume, and the effectiveness that it was having was not going to continue for a prolonged period of time. You had the spinning back fist in the left hook in the 3rd round, the knockdown, a little bit of ground and pound, and it is definitely a Peter Yan round. Not a great 4th round, and the head kick, obviously that big right foot across the face of Corey Sandhagen. The bigger moment, the overhand counters were devastating, and on my scorecard it was 3-2. Not the way the judges had it, it was a lot more 4-1s, but Peter Yan now picks up that interim bantamweight title, so a 2-time UFC champion, basically. 2 times that he's worn the belt. We know this was supposed to be Aljamain Sterling, but he was not able to take the fight due to his neck injury, not able to defend the bantamweight title. So will we see a title unification right away? That really does depend on the health of Sterling's neck. A neck, a spine, it's nothing to play with. These aren't games. Take as much time as Aljamain Sterling needs. I mean, it's unforeseeable when he'll be back in the mix. TJ Dillashaw walked away from his victory over Corey Sandhagen. Oh, and those of you that are listening to this on podcast, I, put my fingers up in quotations, victory. TJ Dillashaw may be too injured. We don't know when he'll be back, if he'll be in the condition within the next 6 months to fight Peter Yan. What am I saying? I'm saying that December 4th, Rob Font faces Jose Aldo with a title shot on the line. Rob Font beats Jose Aldo, and he will be next for Peter Yan. If you want to know what I think is next for Yan, that's what's next. On going down the card, we continue. Lightweight action. Islam Makhachev makes easy work of Dan Hooker. And we're talking about scary work. The comparisons, obviously, to his coach, Khabib Nurmagomedov, are well warranted because of the ground dominance. A jab to a double leg, advances to side control, steps over the head, finishes with a vicious Kimura. It's now 9 in a row. And if the title fight is not next for any sort of a reason, if possible fame, if a possible promise, we'll talk about a fight coming up here this week that could get in the way, but I really feel the title fight is there. Maybe a meeting with Beneil Dariush. Incredible dominance. I mean, ripping through Dan Hooker, the number 6 lightweight in the world. Now, maybe some of that was due to Hooker was already taking this fight on short notice, had just had a fight, had just had a weight cut, had to travel across the world, didn't have his team. Makhachev knew he was fighting on this night. We never got to see that RDA fight, unfortunately. So there are still some questions to be answered about Islam as a title challenger if you really want to nitpick. But I'm not here to do it. Makhachev versus the Poirier Oliveira winner. Sign me up. Heavyweight action. You had number 5 versus number 9, and coming in on the 5-fight win streak was Marcin Tybura. He had worked so diligently to get himself this opportunity to crack into the top 5, and it's a Volkov first round, stuffing the takedown and getting on top. Tybura puts Volkov on the fence for the second round. It comes down to the third. Volkov is more active with his combinations and just keeping the distance, keeping the pressure, and dictating when the exchanges happen. Volkov takes the decision, and unfortunately for Volkov, we've seen him against everybody above him, so he's still fighting below. Next up has to be the streaking American, Chris Daukaus. Daukaus is at 7, Volkov is at 5. Unfortunately for Volkov, he has to defend that number one more time before he gets an opportunity to avenge one of the losses of the guys he's looking up at. The hype train back on the tracks, back on its destination, and back at full steam. Khamzat Chimaev. Oh yeah, not Khamzat. Like it's not Khabib, it's Habib, it's Khamzat Chimaev defeats Li Jingliang. And this came earlier in the night, obviously. And again, it's just made too easy looking by the wrestler. The chain wrestling, the third takedown, the adjustment to the body lock from the back, taking Lee over to Dana White. The takedown happens, and Khamzat is apparently talking about beating everybody, wanting to fight Brock Lesnar. He flattens out, pounds away, and then ends up submitting Li Jingliang with the rear naked choke. Now 4-0 in the UFC for Chimaev, and in a crazy number, he has outlanded his 4 opponents 254-2. Has not seen a third round in 4 UFC victories. Hype Train is back on the tracks. He just beat number 11 in the rankings. And man, I'm a stickler for making guys work for it. I don't see Chimaev, even though it seems that possibly in Abu Dhabi you could give him a title fight right away, and I think it would do great numbers. Belal Muhammad is currently at number 8. Neil Magny is at number 7, and Magny has called out for Chimaev. I honestly fever Chimaev against Magny. I'd like to see that Belal Muhammad fight. And after that, I would like to see Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns. Some of us suggested Gilbert Burns right now. I'd like to see one more big win for Chimaev. Gilbert Burns, a 6-fight win streak, would then add up to the world champion, who we'll talk about in a moment. Don't forget that event just around the corner. That main card was stacked. It had 6 fights in all, and the one that opened up the main card was light heavyweights number 7 versus number 8 in Magomed Ankalaev. To knock down the straight left, the right hand that causes the cut over Volkan Özdemir's left eye, the more dynamic striking, Ankalaev with another victory. He continues to move up the rankings, and I think it's time for him to face a former title challenger. Thiago Santos just beat Johnny Walker, so I like Santos versus Ankalaev next up for the Russian. the feature prelim in the women's strawweight division, we saw Amanda Ribas versus Viana Jandiroba. Jandiroba got the top position, won the first round with her grappling and some ground and pound. The striking of Ribas then took over for the second and third rounds. Staggered Jandiroba in that final round, gets the unanimous decision victory. Another prospect that is back on course after a year away in the lab, developing her tools. We saw some new skills out of Ribas. I still would like to see some more defensive awareness, maybe chucking that chin, pulling the head back. She runs forward. But this victory puts Ribas in a position for a fight night main event against a name like Gardado, Torres, or Watterson. Making his official octagon debut, the former ACB champion Albert Duraev defeats Roman Kopylov. Duraev showed off more striking ability than we knew he had after being a smash machine in his Dana White Contender Series fight. Definitely smashed up Kopylov in the second round. My gosh, two fighters that put each other through it. Duraev, his left eye, I will be amazed if we don't hear that his orbital wasn't just shattered. Forget broken, but just shattered the way his eye looked. And Kopylov looked like his brain was trying to escape his skeleton. It was crazy, trying to get out of his skull. These two fighters definitely earned fight of the night. Now we have to get to the next fight in welterweight action. Some troubling, uncomfortable stuff to watch of bad refereeing. I mean, the ref could have stopped the fight twice in the second. Once off a big right hand, once off of being overwhelmed on the fence. But Benoit Saint Denis was unfairly put through torture, in my opinion. Ezequiel Alexis dos Santos was doing what he had to do to get the finish. Definitely, in my opinion, had it there twice in the second round. BSD Benoit Saint Denis suffers an eye poke, said he could not see. This is troubling, as he said it several times to the referee. The referee did not stop the action to bring in the referee. He gave the fighter a moment to clear his eye, but then just restarted the fight. Did not bring in the ref, did not stop the fight. It's incomprehensible. Then you also have a point deduction for the first low blow, a glancing knee in the clinch. I'm gathering that by this point the referee had said, oh, there was an eye poke, oh, here's a low blow, I'm going to take a point because there were two fouls. But that's not the way this works. It doesn't add up like a tally. They're different fouls. Easy DS, doubles up, BSD, 167 to 80 in total strikes. Looking for a manager or a corner man to possibly throw in a towel to save the French fighter from the beating that the Brazilian was putting him through? No, they wouldn't have thought of it. They know better. Their fighter would want to go out on his shield. It was all troubling to watch. It was incomprehensible. That referee was later removed. His next assignment was to be the Ankula versus Uzdemir fight, which ended up being done by Mark Goddard. But why did the fight go on like it did? After that second round, when there obviously could have been two stoppages, when there could have been a towel thrown in, it is preposterous to me that when that cage door opens and you have cornermen go in, you have obviously a commission member with the corner, they follow them in. How is there not a referee, the head referee, overseeing that night, wherever is leading the commission? How is that person not also entering the cage at that moment and not stopping the fight from what we saw? A. B. Grabbing the referee and removing him from the situation immediately? I mean, Saint Denis did an admirable job of defending himself in that third round. And honestly, You can get knocked out, knocked back in. I guess it's fight or flight at a point, and he was being very effective with some big overhands. But it never should have came to a second or third win, and then he was able to fire back. I don't know how the referee was still allowed to be in the cage at that moment. He was removed, but what if something worse would have happened? There was opportunity for it. Thank gosh it didn't happen. So I'm a little critical of that moment. Continuing on down the card, the featherweight division, in my estimation, top 3 divisions, bantamweight, welterweight, featherweight, as the tightest and most talented divisions that the UFC has to offer. LaRon Murphy racks up his 7th overall, not in the UFC, 2nd in the UFC, 7th overall knockout victory. Makwan Mirkani, we knew he wanted the takedowns. He met a knee in the 2nd round. Brutal finish, great stuff. Andrei Petroski, now 2-0 in the UFC, both by finishes. Beat up Yao Xing Hao. Transition now to the headlines, and we got UFC, Bellator, LFA, and Bare Knuckle FC news to talk about. Yes, we do. Mark Denis versus Rafael Alves, a lightweight bout. That one has been added to the UFC Fight Night on November 13th. And in middleweight action for that event, Eric Anders is out, and Roman Dolidze will be fighting Kyle Dawkins. The UFC Fight Night on November 20th has also had an adjustment, as Gavin Tucker has had to withdraw from his featherweight bout with Tucker Lance, who will now be facing Pat Sabatini. Sijara Eubanks versus Melissa Gatto, a women's flyweight bout that has been added to the Fight Night on December 18th. Heavyweights, Chase Sherman and Jake Collier. Lightweights, Dakota Bush and Slava Borchev. Those 2 fights added to the Fight Night on January 15th. And tough winner Brian Battle versus Shashan Gore, that's in the middleweight division. That one is for the Fight Night on February 5th. Now in Bellator news, Bellator 272 on December 3rd has had a couple additions. In the featherweight division, you're going to see longtime staple Manuel Sanchez, who's 20-6, 12-5 in Bellator, against Jeremy Kennedy, 16-3, 1-1 in Bellator. Lightweight action on the prelims, Mike Hamill versus LFA vet Kilis Mota, not to mention Levon Cruikshank versus Vinicius de Jesus. LFA 118 on November 12th in Burbank, California, has announced a lightweight main event, Arthur Estruzoulis versus Tommy Aaron. Bare Knuckle FC 22, also November 12th. That lineup will include a cruiserweight title fight, champion Hector Lombard defending against Lorenzo Hunt. And in the lightweight division, the champ is back and healthy from his bout with COVID. Luis Palomino takes on that win. And in women's flyweight action, you're going to see Pearl Gonzalez versus Britton Hart. Now we turn towards this week's action. It is the 10th and final week of the Contender Series. Lightweights headline the card. Machete versus Angeles Estramorada. Machete is 5-1, 3 wins by knockout. Angeles 7-0, 4 knockouts. Welterweight co-main event with Justin Burlinson, who's 6-0, 4 subs, 2 knockouts. That's 100% finishing rate, taking on Johan Lanise, 7-0, 5 knockouts. Erison Fiera de Silva, 10-1, 4-fight win streak, all knockouts, meets Quinn Loon, who's 14-7, 5 knockouts, 3 submissions. That's a flyweight bout. Featherweight action, Jonas Brahino, 8-1-1, 100% finishing rate, takes on LFA vet Hawaii's Kana Kawaihai, 6-1. Jonas, 6 knockouts, 1 submission with that 100% finishing rate. 6 knockouts, 2 submissions. Kana has 4 subs, 1 knockout. His last 2 wins, 1 in LFA, 1 in Bellator. Flyweights open that card. Juan Parata, 22-6, 11-fight win streak. Takes on Zahif Song, 32-7, a 20-fight win streak for the Chinese fighter. The final week of the Contender Series, one more time to remind you guys, check it out. It's been a crazy season. If you got ESPN Plus, go back, watch it over, get used to some of the names. Dana White's been handing out contracts like crazy. So spoiler alert, don't be surprised if we also see a spree of cuts coming to keep that roster at its number that the UFC likes to have. We continue on with the week as Bellator, Friday morning for us here in America. I say that because it's the final leg of the European journey, Bellator 270 in Ireland. It was London, England, you had Moscow, Russia, now it's Dublin, Ireland for Bellator 270, and it's a title fight. Patricio vacated the lightweight title. Now his brother Patrick Freire can fight for it in his rematch with Peter Queally. To remind you guys, Queally cut Freire so bad the fight had to be stopped, and now this is the rematch. Freire 7-2 in his last 9. It's a 2-fight skid. He lost in Rising, he lost that one to Queally, but it was a 7-fight win streak. So in essence, as some people have felt, it's a little awkward that the older brother vacated the title so the little brother could fight for it, like that wasn't his full intention. Patrick was on a 7-fight win streak and was the #1 contender before it wasn't logical for him to fight his brother and went looking for other options. So this is just putting him back in the title fight he should have been in a while ago instead of hunting feature fights. Ireland's Queally, his last 3 wins, he's won 3 of 4. His last 3 all have come by that referee stoppage by a knockout consideration. That one's going to be fireworks. There was such bad blood. And now there's 5 rounds and a belt on the line. Talking about bad blood, that's also what we have in the co-main event, originally scheduled to be the main event before the belt was on the line. You have bantamweights Patchy Mix and James Gallagher, the Irishman. Patchy Mix, the Buffalo, New York native, trained for this one in Las Vegas under the tutelage of Jake Shields and Harry St. Ledger over at Extreme Couture. 14-1, 10 wins by submission. Gallagher, 11-1, 9 wins by submission. These two have had bad blood, and Mix has been calling for Gallagher for a hot minute. He's wanted this fight. He's been chasing this fight. We know that Mix is rebounding and reassessing his career. He did that off of the loss to Juan Archuleta, relocated to Vegas, and got back into the win column. For this fight specifically, Gallagher coming on a 4-fight win streak, so you think he has the momentum. What I think and what I've been loving recently is looking at level of competition that one has faced. Gallagher on that 4-fight win streak, his competition has a combined record of 39-20. His best win, I think, was Carl Elner. His most recent win, Elner, 8-2. Will Mix that lost to Archuleta, notwithstanding that one, Archuleta 24-2 at that time. Mix's last 4 wins, the competition has had a 53-18 record. I think that Mix has beat a higher level of competition. Obviously, having fought for the title, has fought against a higher level of competition. It'll be interesting to see how Gallagher, who spent this fight under James Krause in Glory MMA, leaving the John Kavanagh SBG, how that will affect his game and what he will look like, what that added. Mix comes in, I feel, as the favorite. Fabian Edwards, the brother of Leon Edwards, he will return to the Bellator cage on this event. Not to mention, yet featherweights, Daniel Weichel against Pedro Carvalho. Both were in the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix. Both guys are vicious finishers. Friday night on UFC Fight Pass, it's LFA 117 from Visalia, California. Bantamweight showdown in the main event. Brazil's Ricardo Diaz, 10-4, 3-fight win streak against Japanese UFC vet Michinori Tanaka. Diaz, 4 knockouts, 4 submissions. He's won 6 of his last 7. Tanaka, he's won his last 2, and he has 6 wins by submission. Now in the co-main event, we have a flyweight bout. Yuma Horiguchi, 8-4, versus Mark Kamako, unbeaten at 6-0. Horiguchi, 1 scorecard away for being the LFA flyweight champion, and let's not forget his submission of Donovan Freelo. Well, Kamako, 2-0 in the LFA. Man, and that win over Rodney Kialohi proved a lot. The guy has aggressive wrestling and grappling. Catchweight bout, Kalihi Romero taking on Ryan Filligame. Filligame, man, I saw this dude fight way back in 2013 in the amateurs in King of the Cage. He's 6-3, a grinder of a wrestler. Well, Romero, 6-1, a 5-fight win streak. The dude has hit 3 different submissions. Talking about triangle, rear naked, and guillotine to get those victories. Also on UFC Fight Pass on Friday night, you have Lux 108 flyweight title fight. Brazil's Alessandro Costos on a 4-fight win streak takes on Mexico's Kiki Gonzalez, who's won his last 3. That leads us over to Saturday. Back-to-back weekends of UFC pay-per-views. It's UFC 268 on Saturday. That's ESPN Plus pay-per-view. You got early prelims, you got regular prelims, you got that main card, and it all takes place in the Big Apple, coming from the world's most famous arena, as it's labeled, Madison Square Garden. Couple late adjustments to this card. Alexa Kamor is out, and John Allen will now be facing Dustin Jacoby. TJ Laramie is out, and Melisk Baghardarsan will be facing Bruno Sosa. Those are both for this weekend. And let's get to the good stuff. It's the rematches. The main event, the co-main event, they're both title fights, and they're both fights that we've seen before, and they're happening again. The main event, the welterweight title is on the line. Kamaru Usman in his 16-fight win streak. Not to mention, since dethroning Woodley, 4 title defenses. It's been incredible to watch. The first meeting, December 2019, UFC 245. The first title defense, Usman beats Covington. Covington not happy about the 5th round TKO stoppage. Man, the jaw was broke. He was getting jacked up at that point. Since that time, Usman, 2 wins over Jorge Masvidal, Covington's bitter rival and former training partner, not to mention beating the brakes off his own teammate Gilbert Burns. And in that time, Covington has only picked up 1 victory, beating now celebrity boxer Tyron Woodley, UFC analyst. That win, that quality of victory gets worse each day. Now when we look at the raw statistics, Usman comes in with that 2-inch reach advantage. Strikes per minute according to the stats. Usman at 4.66, Covington at 3.9. That means more active is Usman. Not to mention, activity is what Covington is known for. Usman is the more powerful puncher. We've seen the knockouts. We've seen the power jab. We've now seen that right cross in the Masvidal fight. Accuracy, it's 54% to 37% in favor of Usman. Strikes exor per minute, it's 2.33 to 2.35. They both don't take a lot of abuse. It's that Usman dishes it out. Not to mention, Covington likes to get guys tired, mixing up his takedowns and his wrestling. But you can't do that against the Kamaru Usman, who is 100% takedown defense for his UFC career. I can't speak highly enough about the champion, because I do believe, pound for pound, he is the #1 fighter in the world. Once again, I believe that Kamaru Usman will retain his title. Fundamentally, he has been incredible. He has been susceptible at times. Yes, you did see 1 big left hook landed by Jorge Masvidal in that last title defense. But time in and time out, Usman is taking his skills and his game to another level. He has been the more active fighter. He has shown leaps and bounds of growth out each time out. I can't see why that would stop now. I think that Usman makes a statement of Covington in this fight to remind everybody who the baddest welterweight of the planet is, especially coming off of a weekend where Chimaev made so much noise. In the co-main event, it's also a rematch. 7 months ago, Rose Namajunas upset Zhang Weili, knocking her out by first round head kick. This fight comes back together partially because of the star power of Zhang Weili. Having a whole nation being without a doubt the most successful Chinese fighter the UFC has ever had on their roster. That earns her an automatic rematch. Weili said that she was not in the right frame of mind at UFC 261 to face Namajunas after earlier in that night seeing Chris Weidman's leg snap. That could mess with anybody. Rose Namajunas overcame that mental hurdle and strived that night. Achieved a second UFC championship. And here we go one more time. Rose Namajunas comes in with the 2-inch reach advantage. 3.5-inch reach in the legs for only being 1 inch taller. Strike landed per minute, you see Rose at 4.13. Well, Weili at this crazy 6.33. The accuracy, Weili at 45%, just above Rose's 40%. Strikes absorbed per minute, Rose a little bit lower than Weili, 3.99 to 4.42. Rose's defense, she blocks 60% of strikes, while Weili 53%. Can't forget that Rose is a 2-time champion. 2 knockouts, 7 submissions. The 2 knockouts have come in the biggest of moments, knocking out Weili to capture the title. Not to mention knocking out Joanna Jędrzejczyk the first time that she won this world championship. Weili comes in with 10 knockouts, 7 submissions. She submitted Jessica Aguilar. She's knocked out Jessica Andrade, and not to mention taking a decision win over Joanna Jędrzejczyk in what was quite possibly the greatest women's strawweight title fight or women's title fight in UFC or MMA history. She has beaten fighters where they're best at. Can she put it together against the Namajunas that I said has pulled out knockouts in her biggest opportunities? Not to mention also a decision over Joanna too. This is 2 of the best strikers the UFC's women divisions have to offer. I'm expecting an all-time classic, to be honest. The feature fight, this one could be fight of the year. This one could be knockout of the year. Who knows what kind of bloody war or quick finish we're in store for when former Bellator champion Michael Chandler and former World Series of Fighting champion Justin Gaethje throw down. This is number 4 against number 2. Chandler, Iron Mike, number 4, 22-6, 10 knockouts, 7 submissions. Well, Gaethje, 22-3, 19 wins by knockout. Chandler has lost 4 times by knockout. Gaethje comes in with these hell of home run leg kicks. But do not underestimate Michael Chandler's ability to land a big right hand, take the back, and get the submission. All hope for chaos in this one. In featherweight action, I think that there's an opportunity for a breakout star in this card, and it's Billy Quarantillo, 16-3. He's won 9 of 10, 4 of 5 in the UFC. He has 7 knockouts, 5 submissions, taking on Shane Burgos. I've loved me some Shane Burgos. His jab, his uppercut, his flamboyant style, not so much the hairdo. 13-3, number 14 at 145, but 3-3 in his last 6, and it's worrisome that all 3 losses have come by knockout. The Edson Barbosa loss, the Josh Emmett loss. Quarantillo does not throw like those guys, but he's a finisher. And if Burgos has lost anything from those devastating knockouts, which I fear he has, this is an opportunity for Quarantillo to get a number next to his name and get a big fight in the future. Now to kick off that main card, we do it with a former world champion against one of the most fun fighters in the division. Frankie Edgar, Marlon Vera, that's a bantamweight top 15 matchup. Edgar 24-9-1, Vera 19-7-1. Edgar almost feels like he's back at 155. Vera's 2 inches taller, 2.5 inches in reach and 3 inches in legs. This is nothing new, as we said, for Edgar, who has always been the shorter fighter. Strikes landed per minute. Edgar's at 3.7, while Vera comes in at 3.91. Accuracy, Edgar only lands 39% of his strikes, while Vera, a little more picky, a little bit more accurate at 50%. Strikes absorbed, Edgar, for as much abuse as he's taken over the years, a very low number actually for all that time. It's 2.71, while Vera 4.08. On the defense, Edgar avoids 66%, Vera 51%. They are both excellent with their defensive awareness and their head movement. Edgar, only 1-1 since dropping down to 135. It was a split decision over Pedro Munoz that I could tell you Munoz won, and then getting knocked out by Corey Sandhagen. Well, Vera, a 5-fight win streak, is now 2-2 over the last 4 since getting to the upper echelon of the division, this top 15, losing a decision to Song Yadong. He beats the rainbowed hair Sean O'Malley, loses the decision to the former champion Jose Aldo, coming now off of the rebound of beating Davey Grant by decision. 6 wins by knockout for Vera, all of his losses by decision. We'll see if Edgar has a true opportunity to make a run at a title in this fight. Now, if you want to talk about top prospects, his UFC debut will come in the feature prelim. He's a 2-division glory champion, light heavyweight and middleweight division. Alex Pereira, his last 3 wins by knockout, the training partner of Glover, or Glover, depending how you say it, Teixeira, making his UFC debut against Andreas Machidas. Machidas, 1-1 in the UFC. That was after a 3-fight win streak to get to the octagon, 7 knockouts, 4 submissions, but 4 losses by knockouts. The Brazilian Alex Pereira, one of the hardest hitters in all of kickboxing, is here. And we may have a truly intriguing challenger for Israel Adesanya. Not much to say about this next one, but I wanted to mention that it's happening. Chris Curtis, Phil Haas is on this card. Haas, not scared to fight Curtis, just want to know a little bit about him. That one's rebooked. We got an intriguing debut. An Irish Cage Warriors champion, 7-0, Ian Gary, taking on Contender Series alum Jordan Williams. Williams, 2-fight skid. This is an opportunity for Gary to make an impression on his debut. And I mentioned it earlier, Malesik Bahadarsani is making his official debut will be stepping in the octagon for the 2nd time against Bruno Souza. Souza 10-1, a 10-fight win streak for the Machida Karate black belt, who is a former LFA champion. He's going to look to keep this on the outside, use his movement, that Machida style. Well, Malesik, his debut was incredible. Head kick, vicious, aggressive. His 6-fight win streak includes 5 knockouts. And the card opens up with Ode Osborne versus CJ Varga. Osborne, 4 knockouts, 4 submissions in his 9 wins. But he's only 1-2 in the UFC, and I see this as the Contender Series alum, CJ Varga, given an opportunity to impress one more time. Varga, 5th knockout in the row, was the vicious knee to the body on the Contender Series that got him this UFC contract. Let's see if the Brazilian can go out there and impress one more time. Then on Fight Pass Sunday, you have CES MMA 65. Want to throw this one out there. UFC vet Jorgen De Castro faces Daniel Williams in heavyweight action. And former Titan FC WSOF Featherweight Champion Andre Harrison faces Brazil's Mauro Chalet in the co-main event. For the New Mexico fans, real quick, November 13th, School of Hard Knocks Boxing in Hobbs, New Mexico. Mario Gonzalez, Michael Sanchez is the main event. November 20th, Into the Mountain Gods, still on track to see Marco Antonio Barrera versus Daniel Ponce de Leon in the 6-round exhibition. 30-0 Abel Mendoza and top prospect Clinton Chavez both still expected to be on that card. December 3rd, Bare Knuckle FC looks to still be coming to Albuquerque. And School of Hard Knocks will be having an MMA event in December. And my apologies, I forgot to mention November 27th, we will be seeing Fight World MMA at the Fit NHB Martial Arts Complex. So a lot going on this weekend. We touched on about 80% of that UFC card. Don't forget, you also got LFA, you got Bellator, we got CES. We have the last week of this season's Contender Series. There's a lot going on, and you can keep up with all of it at cageminds.com. Thanks for watching.